So in this video, I wanted to talk about artificial intelligence, specifically those little AI notifications that you've probably seen on your phone by now. Letting you know, hey, do you want to do this? You probably might want to do this, things like that. I know that the Google app does it a lot, and now iOS is now doing it with Siri suggestions. I got one for do you want to set an alarm for this time again? There's ways where it's like, hey, are you heading to this place? Because it figured out that you generally go to work at that time. And then of course there's the Google app, and it's like, hey, traffic is heavy, traffic is light. Your drive to work is going to be a little bit longer. But yeah, so we're basically living in the era of AI smart suggestion notifications. And the reason why I want to talk about this today is because I realized the smarter these things get, the more we're going to see them. Now, I'm not saying that these things aren't helpful at all, but the more we see them, the more bulk and noise we're going to have on our devices. And the better and smarter they get, the more intense it's going to become. So I've actually been thinking about this for quite a while now. And I was thinking about if the software that we use, if the apps that we use on a daily basis, were designed better to fit who we are. If they were able to learn from us instead of guessing by observing, would we even need these smart suggestions in the first place? I'm not saying we should get rid of them altogether, but I definitely don't think we need them cluttering up our notification tray on a daily basis. I think if the apps that we use were designed better, we really wouldn't need this extra junk and this constant guessing game from these AI suggestion features. We should be able to set up custom scenarios so that apps can get to know us better from the source, from us. Well, if you're someone that's concerned with privacy, well, what I'm saying is like right up your alley, because not only would it take out the guessing game, but these features wouldn't need to observe us as much because we're literally telling it explicitly, hey, this is what I'm gonna do. If I don't do this, this is what I probably would do instead. All those variables. And now the AI is like, hey, I have all the information that I need. I really don't need to be observing you, watching you while you sleep, watching you while you eat, and all that kind of stuff, because you're telling me literally everything I need to know, at least for the most part. And I think the solution is very simple. You tell the app your variables, your conditionals, your situationals, and I think you should be pretty good at that point. The app should know enough about you to make suggestions without having to observe or guess all the time. Constantly sending you notifications that may or may not be helpful. And now the AI doesn't have to watch you while you sleep, watch you while you eat, and all of these things, because you're literally telling it, hey, this is what I do. And it's like, okay, thanks for all the information. I pretty much have everything that I need now. And then there's those situations where the notification would have been helpful if you forgot the information, and it's like reminding you, hey, you probably should do this. But maybe for that one thing, you never forget, so it doesn't really have to ever remind you. And if you're able to tell the app, like, hey, these are the things that I always remember, these are the things that I remember most of the time, and these are the things that I always forget, you're going to be able to help the app help you a lot better by telling it those things. But not being able to do that now with software, the app is just going to be constantly guessing, and the formula is going to be constantly changing. And I feel like a lot of that information, yes, it's useful information if you had forgotten it, if you needed the reminder. But now we're going to be getting a lot of reminders for things that we just don't need in the first place, which, like I said before, is just going to be causing a lot of bloat, a lot of just bulk, a lot of junk, a lot of noise on your phone, on your iPad, on your computer that you just honestly just don't need because you're so busy, you're so stressed, you're trying to get your life together. Maybe you have a family, maybe work's really stressful, maybe you have 2 jobs, 3 jobs, side hustle, and now you have all this extra noise coming to your phone. You're like, I thought I turned these notifications off. Well, it's like, well, no, your phone has all these smart notifications that you have to also turn off altogether, but then you're like, I really don't want to turn them off because sometimes they are useful, but they're not useful all the time. So how do I deal with that? How do I tell the AI that, remind me about this, but not about this? And it just gets to this point where you really have to start telling the apps what you need, what you don't need. And until developers and founders realize this and take this into account, you're going to be getting a lot of noise on your devices. So yeah, let's go through some examples. I know I mentioned this in a previous video, but alarm clocks are a great example because they're awful, especially the default ones, especially the one on iOS is just god awful. But I think the alarm clock could be a lot better, so we don't have to get those annoying suggestions like, hey, do you want to set your alarm? It's like the problem isn't that I need to remember to set the alarm. The problem is remembering to turn it off, specifically turning off all 10 of the alarms that I set, because the alarm clock app is just awful to begin with. but that's a whole nother conversation. Anyway, wouldn't it be nice if the alarm clock app knew when you were asleep, knew when you're awake, turned off the alarms for you, turned them on for you, things like that. And if it's not 100% sure, yeah, I can ask you. I can say, hey, are you definitely awake? I just want to make sure. That is like 100 times more useful than getting a notification that's like, hey, turn on this one alarm. It's like, first of all, I want to make sure that I actually get up. So I'm not just going to set one alarm, right? So just things like that don't make any sense. Not to mention the lack of alarm-based context, like is the alarm for waking up or is the alarm for something important like medication? Or are you using a separate app for your medication? There's so many variables that come into play here, as you can see. That's why AI is going to have a lot of trouble figuring this stuff out, especially for a while. But it would be a lot easier for the AI if you said, hey, this is all the information that I know now. It's going to help you greatly. It's like reading a book. It's like the more books you read, the more you know on the subject, the less you have to make assumptions constantly all the time. It's like the same logic applies here. Maybe you can link the alarm clock app to your task manager. So the alarm's like, hey, this person had a very busy day and they're probably really stressed. Oh, I can see that they worked, till 2 a.m. on this project. So maybe I should set alarms accordingly so that they actually wake up for work the next day. So maybe they're going to need some extra alarms. Maybe they're going to hit the snooze button a lot more. So another example would be your GPS navigation, Waze, Google Maps, etc. And another example could be GPS navigation. And I know Waze already has that smart feature, like I mentioned, where it's like, hey, are you heading here today? It just saves you that extra step of like finding the location on the list and clicking on it. But the problem with this suggestion is it's just looking at frequency. Hey, you've gone here every day around this time, like say you're going to work every day, Monday through Friday, and it just figures it out. But what if you just like put into the app, this is my work schedule. So it's like, it doesn't have to guess anymore, you know what I mean? Or, and I know Waze can link to your calendar. So it can be like, hey, here's the address, and it puts the address in for you because you already have it in your calendar, and that's really useful. But maybe you're not going to leave the house every single day, or maybe there's certain reasons why you don't leave the house. Maybe the first weekend of every month you stay inside and you focus on, fixing up the house. Or maybe the very end of the month you're staying inside cramming for work, you're working extra hours at home, things like that. So if you were able to inform your navigation app that you're not going to this place today, you don't care about the traffic alerts because you are definitely 99.9% sure you're going to be staying inside today. And Waze also lets you know about traffic updates like the Google app does. And so those are great, but maybe you're not going to be leaving the house that day. And the same kind of logic could be used for weather apps, for example. It'll know whether or not you're going to go outside based on what you tell it. If the app's going to let you know about the weather based on your events, if they're going to be outside. So say you're able to put a calendar event in your calendar and it's like, okay, this is a really important function that I planned for a couple weekends from now. It's going to be outdoors. We're not going to have any tents. We're not going to have anything like that, no coverings. And if the weather app knew that in advance, it could keep you updated. So that way, if you had to reschedule, you'd be able to do that a lot sooner than if you forgot to look at the weather app in the first place and now it's too late to reschedule. And I don't think I've seen this yet, but if a task or project manager were to start giving you suggestions, it could look at your, current task log, your current history, what you're working on now, what you've worked on the past week. And, it would be able to figure out, are you burnt out or not? And then you'd be able to tell the app, this is how many tasks I want to do on a daily basis. And if I go beyond this number, well, I'm probably going to be using up more energy. I'm probably going to get burnt out. And by telling the app that information, it's going to make the app a lot smarter when it comes to saying, hey, you should probably do this. It's like, no, I don't really need to be reminded about that right now. I need to get some sleep. So yeah, that would be really helpful, So, or maybe you only got one task done, or maybe you completed everything and you're all caught up and the app's like, hey, there's a couple tasks in your cold storage that you haven't touched in 3 years. Maybe you should get around to that, seeing that you've got everything else done. And that would actually be really useful. But being able to tell the app these specific things, it gives it a lot more conditional logic based on these situations. Another example could be like a fitness app where it knows whether or not to suggest the weather or things based on whether or not you're going to be running outside or running inside a gym. And it can figure that stuff out based on information from other apps like your task manager, your location. Another example could be like fitness apps where maybe you're working late at the office and it suggests using the gym at your office because you're not going to have time to make it to your other gym in time before it closes. Or maybe it suggests running in a certain area based on where you're going to be throughout the day. Or maybe it suggests exercising indoors today because you have a lot of things you're going to be working on. You really need to get all that stuff done, and it knows that based on your project management app and you have a link to it. So there are plenty of ways to give information to apps. And the more information that that we give these apps, the more context that we give it, the less we're going to need these AI suggestions in the first place. But yeah, essentially what I'm trying to say here is the more context that we can give the software that we use, the less we're going to need all this noise from AI suggestions cluttering up our phones. But yeah, let me know what you think in the comments. Do you think I'm crazy? Do you think this stuff makes any sense to you? Or maybe you have your own ideas that I didn't mention in the video. I would definitely love to know what those are. Be sure to follow me on Twitter and Instagram for updates. Check out my main YouTube channel where I cover software. But yeah, let me know if there's anything you want me to cover in a future video. I'm all ears. And until then, I will see you in the next video.